Hi, I'm Briana Hetherington.
I'm Jenn Hatcher.
And I'm Kat Gottlieb.
Welcome to the Conscious Creator Community Podcast. We are over the moon excited to share our wisdom, experiences, and valuable insights to becoming the best version of yourself.
The question that makes this entire conversation really uncomfortable for some people. What if the next thing that changes your life isn't something new that you learn? What if you already know what needs to change and you're afraid of what you'll have to leave behind to change it?
That is the question underneath this entire series. We began by asking what we might be avoiding through constant input. Then we asked what happens when everybody else's advice becomes louder than our own voice. But once the noise quiets and we can finally hear ourselves, we arrive at the question that requires the most courage. What would change if I actually lived what I already know?
Because being able to explain something is not the same as your brain knowing how to live it. Those are different forms of learning.
I mean, this feels personally offensive. Let me just put that out there. I mean, I love an insight. I love a breakthrough. I can turn a life-changing realization into a note on my phone in less than 30 seconds.
Yes, same. And then never open that note ever again.
Exactly. I can organize a breakthrough beautifully without allowing it to inconvenience my actual life.
Yep.
Which is why I have a handful of projects I haven't started yet, if I'm being totally honest.
The thing is, real transformation is almost always inconvenient because it interrupts a pattern. It might change a conversation. It disappoints somebody. It asks us to behave differently before the new behavior feels natural.
Oh, well, this reminds me, there's this case from neuroscience that completely changed how researchers understand the difference between knowing and doing. For decades, a patient named Henry Mazzolin was simply known as HM. So after brain surgery, he could no longer form many kinds of new conscious long-term memories. Researcher Brenda Milliner gave him a task where he had to trace a shape only looking at its reflection in a mirror. He practiced the task over several sessions and he kept getting better. But every time he returned, he had no conscious memory of having done it before.
Wait, so his hands had learned something that he couldn't remember learning? Like, that's bananas.
Yes, his performance improved even though he couldn't consciously recall the practice. His case helped demonstrate that knowing a fact and learning a skill rely on partly different memory systems. And the reverse matters to us. We can remember the lesson. We can explain it perfectly. We can recommend the book to someone else. But that doesn't mean we've practiced the response enough for it to become available when we're stressed, afraid, or triggered.
So I can explain boundaries. I can give somebody else great boundary advice, and I can still feel challenged when I have to hold myself to boundaries with certain people.
Exactly. Knowing what a boundary is involves one kind of learning. Holding one boundary, while someone is disappointed with you requires practice as we know it.
Huh. So what we're trying to say is the mind can hold an idea that life has never practiced.
Ooh, okay. I have absolutely had things that I could explain long before I could live them. We already know I love learning and growing. And in one role that I held, I taught sales training. In addition to things like soft skills and disc deep dives, there was a very specific sales methodology I taught where metaphorically you had to close one room of the submarine before going into the next room. And when you closed all the rooms on the submarine, you had a closed sale. Well, as we know, teaching and doing are not the same thing. I could teach this with my eyes closed and in my sleep, forwards, backwards, sidewards. It didn't matter. I taught it amazingly well. But actually using that sales theory was so disconnected for me and like unaligned with how I build really deep relationships. I couldn't get the execution down in my own sales. And I talk about like feeling like you have the biggest mental blockage on the planet and feeling like a failure that you're not doing what you're teaching.
And what did you have to do differently before you felt differently?
Yeah, I beat myself up a lot on that one. So first, I had to admit to myself that because a strategy works for some people, as much as you intellectually get it, if you're going to keep fighting yourself and shaming yourself every single day, maybe it's not the right strategy for you. And that's okay. When I finally accepted that truth for myself, honestly, it felt like a huge relief and it gave myself permission to move on.
Oh, well, that's a really important piece of it because that distinction matters, Jen. We often assume a new feeling will produce a new behavior, but sometimes the behavior has to come first. The feeling and eventually the identity begin catching up after we've given the brain new evidence.
Yeah, you didn't wait until you felt like the stronger version of yourself. You gave that version of you a space to take a stand. But before practice, there's another step we keep skipping, and that's the idea of space.
Ooh, and that brings us directly back where we started. You can't heal in constant input. Studies on wakeful rest have found that a short period of quiet after learning can improve later memory compared with immediately filing that time with another mentally demanding task. Researchers believe that quiet reduces interference and gives the brain an opportunity to stabilize some of what it has just taken in. That doesn't mean 10 silent minutes magically heals your life. It means quiet is not necessarily wasted time. Something useful may still be happening after the information stops.
Oh, okay. I have this huge smile on my face because when I finish a really meaningful podcast and immediately start another podcast and then answer a text or six and check Instagram and open my emails all simultaneously.
Yeah, you may be crowding out the very thing you hoped would change you.
As much as I hate to admit it, that totally brings segment one full circle.
Mhm.
We need to filter what we let in before the burnout. And we've treated silence as if nothing is happening. But as you both just said, maybe the silence is where the real work, or as I like to say, the magic, finally begins.
Because growth isn't only about what we take in, it's about what we allow to take root. If we keep digging up the ground for that, just to check the next seed, nothing has time to become a part of us. At some point, we have to tend the truth that's already there. Transformation begins when wisdom stops being something you collect and becomes something you live.
Whoa, okay. But silence isn't always peaceful. Once upon a time, I would get quiet and I didn't hear profound inner wisdom. I heard anxiety, fear, loneliness, and a running list of everything I forgot to do. It forced me to ask the question, how do I know whether I'm hearing intention or just fear with excellent communication skills?
Ooh, that's a powerful question to ask yourself, Jen. And self-trust doesn't mean assuming every thought or impulse is wise or truth. It means allowing your own judgment into the conversation instead of automatically replacing it with somebody else's. You listen to yourself, test what you're hearing against your values, and observe what happens when you act on it.
Yeah, intuition doesn't need immunity from examination. It just needs some space to speak.
Ooh, Kat, that feels really important because in segment 2, we weren't saying never ask for advice again.
No, advice can expand our perspective. It's not a bad thing. The problem begins when we use it to avoid the responsibility of choosing.
Self-trust isn't certainty. It's hearing yourself before you outsource the answer. And I want to throw out a challenging perspective for you. If every meaningful insight has to become an action item, are we turning healing into another productivity system? People might feel like not only am I consuming all the info, now I'm failing to implement all of it.
Ooh, I agree with your concern. The problem isn't that action is required. The problem is believing every piece of information deserves action. Integration requires selection.
But who decides what deserves to be lived?
We do, based on our values, who we authentically are, our circumstances, and what the evidence of our own lives are telling us.
So then choosing is part of the transformation that we're looking for. Wisdom isn't only knowing what to practice, it's also knowing what to leave behind.
Okay, so transformation isn't doing more with everything I know. It's deciding what matters enough to have space and to live. That's powerful. Let's hear that again. Transformation isn't doing more with everything you know. It's choosing what matters enough to live.
Well said, Jen. And once you choose, the timeline may be longer and much more forgiving than social media has led us to believe. A well-known real-world habit study followed 96 people as they practice a simple eating, drinking, or activity behavior in consistent contexts. Among the participants whose data followed the expected habit formation curve, the median time to approach automatic was 66 days. But the range was enormous throughout the 96 people, from anywhere as soon as 18 days to 254 days.
Dang. So the completely transform your life in 21 days might be slightly optimistic.
Yes, but as we know on social media, it's excellent for selling planners.
A little optimistic indeed. But the more helpful finding was that missing one opportunity did not materially derail the habit formation process. One missed day didn't erase the learning.
Ooh, okay. This might be the part that people need to hear the most. Sometimes it isn't the missed day that takes us out. It's the story we tell ourselves about the missed day. It's that head trash that you start running. I knew I couldn't do this. I always quit. Here we go again. And that self-defecating behavior.
Exactly, Jen. And like Kat was speaking about, compassion for self. Okay. One lapse becomes an identity verdict, and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. But here's the thing. A rhythm is not a perfect streak. Like a rhythm is a way of returning. A rhythm isn't a perfect streak. It's a way of returning.
It is indeed, Kat. And I do want to push one thing though. Sometimes we wait to feel aligned, confident, or fully transformed before we act. But identity often follows evidence. You may need to practice the behavior before you feel like the person who does it.
Totally agree to a point, because repetition without personal meaning can also become obedience. We can become extremely disciplined at living life. We never consciously choose.
I mean, that's fair, Kat. Well said. Then the question isn't simply what behavior am I repeating? It's what kind of evidence am I building about who I'm becoming?
So action builds identity, but it needs to be an action I choose. No more rule I borrowed from somebody else or something I learned from somebody else. It is my choice.
Yes. Otherwise, we've escaped constant advice only to turn someone else's wisdom into our newest performance.
Bree, have you ever known the research and understood exactly what will help or should help, and still discovered that living it took much longer than understanding it?
Oh, yeah, Jen. One of the biggest lessons of my life has been learning that understanding something intellectually does not mean your nervous system has caught up yet. For years, I studied mindfulness, neuroscience, meditation, habit formation, and neuroplasticity. I could explain how the brain changes. I could teach it. I genuinely believe in it. But there were seasons where I still found myself constantly building another company, starting another project, listening to another podcast, reading another book, always feeling like if I could just learn one more thing or accomplish one more goal, then I'd finally be at peace. When I eventually realized I wasn't searching for more knowledge, I was searching for certainty. And I was using achievement to avoid sitting with that uncertainty. And that was a hard truth that I had to face. So I started practicing something that sounded incredibly simple, but was surprisingly very difficult. Every morning before reaching for my phone or opening a book, I would just sit for 10 quiet minutes, doing absolutely nothing except noticing my breath and allowing myself to be present. Some days my mind was racing. Some days I wanted to get up after 30 seconds because the body was telling me to, and so was the mind. And some days I thought, this isn't going to accomplish anything. But I kept coming back to it. And slowly, something changed and began to shift. I stopped believing my value came from how much I could produce. I started realizing that peace wasn't waiting for me on the other side of accomplishment. It was available in this present moment all along. And looking back, the transformation didn't happen because I learned something new. It happened because I practiced returning over and over again until presence became more familiar than surviving.
What changed once you stopped treating the lapse as proof that you failed?
The awareness of really seeing truth for what it was. Rather than always craving something new, I just sat with the present moment and began to make that a practice. Just like if I go to the gym and I'm working out, right? You go for the first week, you don't feel that much different. You go for the second week and all of a sudden you start feeling good. Week 3, you're like, whoa, I'm starting to maybe see some muscles here, and starting to just get in a consistent habit of being present and just focusing on my breath.
Bri, I can riff off of that because when you challenge us to sit for 10 minutes in meditation, and because I was committed to the idea that I could not sit still for 10 minutes. I couldn't meditate. Like I couldn't put it into use. But once I said, okay, fine, I'll do it for a month for Bri. And, and then, so, first few times, I thought it was cool, but not necessarily knowing whether or not it was creating any value for me. But I think it was that, like you said, the practice of returning again and again, just 10 minutes a day. And then it starts to feel like better and more familiar. And the familiarity let me sit with it a little deeper. And so it was a real big realization to me of the importance of just repetition and practice within something that, like meditation, literally rewires your brain. So that had a profound effect on me.
Yeah, I love that you did the challenge, and now it's a habit. It's a practice that you do every day to allow your
Joy.
nervous system to. Yeah, it's something you look forward to now.
Yeah, for sure.
But it definitely didn't start that way, right? Like,
No.
It takes time. It's like, what am I doing here? I'm just sitting in silence. What is this doing? We're not conditioned to just sit here in silence. What are we, so now all of a sudden the brain has time to process all that has happened.
And I think for me, what it gives is a pause to prioritize, right? So when I go into my day feeling I know what's the most important steps to take, and it's not my thinking brain that often tells me what's the right thing to do. It's that inner knowing, and the meditation gives me the space and the grace to listen to it more than the executive functioning part of my brain.
I'm going to jump in here a second because same challenge, right? Meditation at this point has now become one of the non-negotiables in my day. Absolutely 100% non-negotiable. And my whole family knows, like, oh, mom's meditating, leave her alone, which is great. But besides that, for me, meditation allows my entire nervous system to settle down and to breathe so that I am going through my day with more intention. I'm calmer. I have better responses. I see things more strategically, and I'm not like in the weeds with everything so much. On the days I don't meditate versus the days I do, again, non-negotiable, but sometimes life is life. my family knows based on my behavior whether I got to meditate or not that day. And it doesn't mean I'm dysregulated or there's something wrong with me. It means that meditation is that profound to letting my body and my brain take a couple minutes to just center. And it's so critical, and it's become a really beautiful part of my life. So for anybody who thinks they don't have 10 minutes, you do have 10 minutes. You need to prioritize the 10 minutes, and you need to take that time and carve it out for yourself. So I want to stay with that a minute. Okay, so ladies, Brie, I'm gonna start with you first. Someone listening is going to take 10 minutes in their day, ideally before the day starts or before it gets really loud again. What do we actually want them to do? And we don't want a 17-step morning routine. We don't want it to be complicated. Just 10 minutes, actionable item. What do we want?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question because I hear all the time, like, I don't know how to meditate, or where do I start? Or I can't sit there for 10 minutes without any thoughts. That's not what we're looking to accomplish. All we're looking to accomplish is to just sit in stillness. We have nowhere to be, nothing to do, and to just focus on your breath, okay? And it is normal to have thoughts. We have 60,000 of them a day. And most people think, oh, you can't have thoughts during meditation, or I have to start over, right? You can have thoughts. Allow those thoughts. Now, don't make those thoughts mean anything or control you. You are in control. You are the awareness behind those thoughts. If you think about the first time you guys meditated, right? Almost think about thoughts as clouds just drifting by. We're not judging them. We're not shaming them. We're just allowing them to be and centering and coming back to our breath. That's all you need to do for 10 minutes. Come back to your breath. Focus on your breath.
And while you're doing that, probably the best thing to do is take one idea or one behavior and begin with a little silence in those 10 minutes and just be intentional about, change doesn't have to be big. It could just be one small transformation.
Yeah. And when that segment ends, don't immediately add more input. You don't need to pile stuff on. Take those 10 minutes. And then if you want to add something on, complete this sentence. I already know. Don't write down what sounds impressive. Don't write down what you feel like somebody else is going to read and they're going to judge you on. Don't judge yourself. Write the truth that has been following you, that you're allowing yourself to find in that silence. And then one of the things you can do is ask, what's one visible behavior that would make this true in my life?
Yeah, I want to repeat this because I think it was so important what you just said, Jen. It doesn't have to be a dramatic, performative behavior. Try to find what feels the most authentic, the honest one.
Yeah. And just allow yourself, give yourself permission. So practice that one behavior for just 7 days. Make a commitment and treat it as an experiment, not as a declaration that you're now a completely different person. If you miss an opportunity, return at the next one.
Can I give an example here? So if your truth is, I know I need more quiet, your behavior you test might be one commute in silence. No podcast, no music, no talk to text. You're answering emails and replying. Silence.
Ooh, I love a nice silent drive. If the truth is, I already know what I want, write your own answer before asking the group chat, an expert, or 3 different friends. Trust yourself.
Yeah. And the truth is, I know this boundary, conversation, or practice matters. And then take one small action that allows your life to reflect your inner knowing.
Pause long enough to hear yourself. Choose what is actually yours, and then practice it enough to create the evidence.
That is the moment from awareness into integration.
And eventually, from something you practice into something you're becoming.
Okay, here's the questions we want to leave with you today. What do I already know, but keep consuming more information around?
What is one observable behavior that would turn that knowledge into evidence?
And then, what discomfort might I have to tolerate to become the person who can actually live it?
Not forever, just one truth, one behavior for 1 week.
Okay, guys, let's answer the same question, all three of us. What do you hope people remember when they find themselves reaching for one more answer?
You don't need to shame the version of yourself who knew better but couldn't do better yet. Choose one teeny compassionate action and let that be where becoming begins.
Ooh, love
Yeah.
that. Compassion and understanding yourself gives you a map. Repetition teaches your brain how to travel the road.
And I think I'd want them to know that the answer you're searching for may already be patiently waiting for you to open up to it and honor it.
Information gave us language to start.
And awareness showed us the pattern and what constant input might be helping us avoid.
Self-trust helped us decide which wisdom was actually authentically ours.
Integration turns a chosen truth into a repeated behavior.
Yes, and transformation is what remains when the episode ends.
So before you start searching for one more answer,
Live one you already have.